The last point to finish up with, Chairwoman and friends. Totally exaggerated claims are being made by the proponents of Lisbon for the Charter of Fundamental Rights being included now in the Lisbon Treaty. And we are being told that this will make a fundamental difference to the rights of working people, and even one of Rory's colleagues, a TD, argued with me at a previous debate that the Laval case, which endorsed exploitation of workers in Sweden by the European Court of Justice, could not happen after the Lisbon Treaty if it is passed because of the Charter of Fundamental Rights. That is absolutely false. It is quite clear that the Charter is conditional in the rights that it gives. It's very, very clear in the Charter itself. People should read it. It is easily readable, unlike the treaty itself. And it says any rights given in this Charter are within the scope of the treaties and European law. That means within the scope of the market economy and the competition policy of the European Union. And in recent cases, when that came to a contest in front of the European Court of Justice, where companies were protesting against action taken by trade unions to stop the exploitation and the undercutting of the growing rate, particularly in construction, the European Court of Justice stood with the exploiting subcontractors. Most recently that happened in what is called the Rufert case in Germany, where a contractor from Poland who was paying less than half of the going rate was stood over and supported by the European Court of Justice, despite the fact that that was one of the policies of the local entities in Lower Saxony in Germany to try and ensure that migrant workers were not exploited. Therefore, it is quite clear that when it will come down to these issues, the European Court of Justice has its mind made up. And in case anybody thinks that the Charter is new, the Charter was solemnly proclaimed by the European Union in 2000. And in paragraph 91 of the Laval case judgment, the court makes specific reference to the Charter of Human Rights. So they were taking it into account already when they made that judgment in Laval, which endorsed the right of a Latvian company to underpay the construction rate in Sweden at that time. Now, it is true that they may not breach, the European Court of Justice could not allow them to breach the national minimum wage, or in the case of Ireland in construction, the registered agreement. But really, in terms of workers' rights and to stop the race to the bottom and exploitation, all the Charter of Fundamental Rights does is to guarantee the national minimum wage of €8.65 in this country. And that exists already. We don't need it. And by the way, we might say as well, there'll be time for the debate, friend, there'll be time for the debate. I have to finish up because I'm over my time. We might say as well, it's been remarkable, this huge cacophony of support and praise for the Charter from Fianna Fáil, from Fine Gael, from the Labour Party, from everybody else. And as I said to some eminent representatives of those parties recently in a meeting, lads, you're all so much agreed on this, what do you need Lisbon for? Just rush up to the Dáil and legislate and bring it in, and then we'll have those rights anyway. We don't need the Lisbon Treaty to do that. So those claims are completely wrong in my view. Working people cannot rely on conservative institutions wedded to competition, which put the right of business to profit and to trade above the rights of workers. They must rely on their own organisations and their own mobilisation and power. Our alternative, dear friends, is a Europe run not by big business, not by the armaments merchants, but run democratically and socially by working people. A democratic and socialist Europe where the resources of society are democratically owned and controlled genuinely by the majority. And on the basis of that, we can redirect resources where they're needed. There is no need for any poverty in Europe. There is no need for homelessness in Europe if the resources of Europe were organised democratically by the will of the majority of the people, rather than being corralled by private conglomerates for their own profit. And it is a Europe and a world where particularly the armaments industry would be banished, and the resources that are obscenely wasted in the creation of weapons of mass destruction would instead be directed to resolving the problems of humanity. clean water for hundreds of millions of people who do not have it at the present time, many other environmental and other problems that could be solved with human ingenuity. That is how we undermine terrorism, undermine war, undermine conflict, and create a world where it's not necessary to waste billions on arms such as the European Union and the United States think is proper to do at the present time. That is an entirely different vision, a democratic and a socialist vision, and I would argue that it's a vision that will bring humanity forward rather than into a new arms race, more conflict and more misery.